My name is Kevin, my wife, Laura, and I moved into a beautiful Victorian house on a quiet street last year. The price was surprisingly low, which should have been a red flag, but the house was perfect, large, historic, and full of character. The first few nights were peaceful, but then I began to hear strange noises. It started as a low humming. I thought it was the pipes or the old wood settling, but the sound persisted. Late at night, when everything else was quiet, I could hear voices. I assumed it was the neighbors, but the voices never sounded like any of them. They were distant, muffled, as though coming from inside the walls. At first, I brushed it off, thinking I was just imagining things. But one night, I couldn't sleep. The voices were clearer now. I got out of bed and followed the sound to the hallway, where I noticed something strange. One of the walls near the staircase was slightly bulging. I pushed against it, and to my surprise, it gave way. The wall opened up, revealing a hidden room. It was small, barely big enough for me to stand in, but the air inside was cold, damp, and it smelled wrong. I stepped in. The voices stopped. The room was covered in scratches, like something had been trying to claw its way out. The floor was littered with broken furniture, and in the corner, there was a small, tattered book. I opened it. The pages were filled with frantic scribbles, the ink smudged as though the writer had been in a hurry. But one sentence stood out. "They can hear you." Suddenly, the voices started again, louder this time. Panicked, I ran out of the room and slammed the wall shut. Laura woke up to find me sitting in the living room, trembling. "What happened?" she asked. "The walls," I said. "The voices, they're still in there. We left that night, and we've never looked back. But sometimes, when I'm alone, I still hear the voices, whispering from within the walls, urging me to come back." My name is Mason. My girlfriend, Kate, and I moved into an old cottage in the woods, far from the nearest town. We'd wanted a quiet escape, and the cottage seemed perfect, but there was something strange about the place from the very beginning. One of the first things we noticed were the footprints at night, after we went to bed. We'd wake up in the morning to find fresh footprints in the snow outside. They were always just outside the front door, leading toward the woods. I checked the locks every night, convinced it was some kind of prank, but every morning, the prints were still there. They weren't human though. The shape was odd too, large, too deep for a person's footsteps. Kate was starting to get unnerved. "Mason, this isn't funny anymore," she said one evening as I examined the prints again. "We need to leave." But I brushed it off, too stubborn to admit I was scared. That night, as the wind howled outside, I heard something footsteps. But they weren't outside. They were coming from inside the house. I got up, grabbed a flashlight, and checked every room. Nothing. But when I went into the kitchen, I froze. There, in the dust on the floor, were fresh footprints. Only, they didn't lead anywhere. They appeared out of thin air. "Kate," I shouted. Kate rushed into the kitchen, but by the time she arrived, the footprints were gone. We couldn't explain it. The next morning, the prints were outside again, but this time, they were closer to the house leading up to the front door. I bolted it shut and checked the entire cottage. Every window, every door, locked tight, but I couldn't shake the feeling that we weren't alone. That night, we heard the footsteps again, louder, clearer, as though they were circling the house. When I went to check, there was nothing. Kate left the next morning, but I stayed behind. I wanted to prove there was an explanation. But now, every time I step outside, I see the prints leading into the woods, but never coming back. My name is Sarah. My husband, Ben, and I moved into an old farmhouse a few weeks ago. It was perfect for our young daughter, Lily, who loved the large backyard and the quiet, peaceful atmosphere. But there was something we didn't expect. It all started with Lily's drawings. One morning, I found her sitting at the kitchen table, drawing furiously. The paper was covered with strange, childish sketches, houses, trees, and people, but there was something unsettling about them. Each drawing depicted the same figure, a tall, faceless man with long arms, his fingers twisted in unnatural ways. "Who's that?" I asked, trying to sound casual. Lily looked up at me, her eyes wide with innocence. "That's the man in the attic." Ben and I exchanged uneasy glances. We had checked the attic when we first moved in, and there was nothing unusual there. But that night, I heard something. A scraping noise, like fingers running along the walls. I couldn't ignore it. I walked up to the attic door. It was locked, as it had been before, but I felt an overwhelming urge to open it. I grabbed the key from the drawer and unlocked the door. I wasn't prepared for what I saw. The attic was empty, no furniture, no boxes, nothing but an old wooden floor. But against the far wall, the same figure from Lily's drawings stood, his long arms reaching toward me. I stepped back, heart racing. But when I turned to leave, I saw Lily standing at the top of the stairs, holding one of her drawings. "He's not happy you opened the door," she said softly. We didn't stay long after that. We left the next morning, but every time I close my eyes, I can still see the man's twisted fingers, waiting. My name is Luke. My girlfriend, Emily, and I moved into a large, secluded home on the outskirts of town. It was the perfect place to get away from the hustle and bustle, and it was within our budget. The only catch: the house had an attic that wasn't mentioned during the sale. We first noticed it one evening when we were unpacking. Emily was in the living room, and I was upstairs when I heard faint whispers. I paused, listening. The words were indistinct at first, like a conversation, just out of reach. I shook it off. "Just the wind," I muttered to myself. That night, the whispers got louder. They came from the attic, but when I checked, there was nothing. Just dust and old furniture that hadn't been touched in years. Emily, starting to feel uncomfortable, suggested we ignore it. But the whispers didn't stop. Every night, they grew clearer, and soon, they weren't whispers anymore, they were full sentences. "Help us," they begged. At first, we thought it was some kind of trick, maybe a sound system hidden in the attic. I climbed up to investigate, determined to find the source. But what I found made my blood run cold. The attic was empty. Not a single speaker or recording device. Just an old, rotting trunk in the corner. I opened it. Inside, there was nothing but a crumpled sheet of paper with a single word written on it. Run. That night, the whispers turned into screams. They came from all around, oozed through the walls, the floors, the ceiling. We packed our bags and left the house, but the last thing I heard before driving away was a voice in my ear, clear as day: "You can't leave." My name is Aaron. A few weeks ago, my wife, Natalie, and I moved into a charming old house with floor-to-ceiling mirrors in nearly every room. The previous owner had been an artist, obsessed with reflections. At first, we thought it was beautiful. Then, we started noticing inconsistencies. One evening, while brushing my teeth, I looked up and saw my reflection staring at me. Not moving, just watching. I blinked. It didn't. I turned away, heart pounding. When I looked again, everything was normal, just tired. I muttered. Then, Natalie saw something too. There was someone else in the mirror, she whispered one night. Behind me. I checked. Just our reflections. But the house felt wrong. One night, I stayed up late, determined to catch whatever was happening. I sat in front of the living room mirror. Staring, 2:47 a.m. My reflection tilted its head. I hadn't moved. A chill crawled up my spine. Then, it smiled. I didn't. I stumbled back, knocking over a lamp. The glass cracked. The reflection stepped forward. I ran. The next morning, we covered all the mirrors. But at night, we could hear faint tapping coming from underneath. the sheets. Like something was trying to get out. We moved out a week later, but sometimes, in the corner of my eye, I catch a glimpse of a reflection that isn't quite mine. My name is Elliot. My wife, Samantha, and I moved into our dream house last month. It was an old Victorian-style home, full of charm and history. But there was one thing we couldn't explain: a door that wasn't supposed to be there. It was in the hallway between our bedroom and the guest room. When we checked the house's blueprint, that section of the house was supposed to be a solid wall, but there it was, a door. Weird, Samantha muttered. Should we open it? I hesitated. Something about it felt wrong. That night, I woke up to creaking floorboards. The door was slightly ajar. Samantha, I whispered. She was fast asleep. I grabbed my phone and tiptoed toward the hallway. The door was wider now, revealing darkness beyond. I reached out, hand trembling, and pushed it open. Cold air rushed past me. Inside was a small, windowless room. Dust floated in the stale air. In the center stood a single wooden chair, facing the corner. Then I saw the writing on the walls. Don't sit, don't look, don't stay. A floorboard creaked behind me. I spun around, nothing there. Then I heard the chair scrape against the floor. I ran the next morning. The door was gone, just a blank wall where it had been. But at night, we still hear the creaking floorboards, and sometimes the sound of a chair dragging across the floor. My name is Brandon, my wife Lisa, and I moved into our new home with our son Oliver 2 weeks ago. It was perfect, spacious, affordable, and in a quiet neighborhood. But there was something strange about the upstairs hallway. A closet door stood between 2 bedrooms, but when I opened it, there was nothing, just a solid wall. No shelves, no storage space, just a door leading nowhere. Probably a renovation mistake, Lisa said. I agreed, until the knocking started, every night. At exactly 3:12 a.m., soft knocks echoed from inside the closet. Lisa and I both heard it. Oliver did too. Daddy, there's someone in the closet, he whispered one morning. I checked, knocking back just to prove it was empty. The moment my knuckles touched the wood, something knocked back. I slammed the door shut. That night, I locked it. At 3:12 a.m., we woke to scratching sounds. Lisa clutched my arm. Brandon. The door. It was open. A foul stench filled the hallway, damp earth and rotting wood. The shadows near the closet stretched unnaturally, twisting along the walls. Then, Oliver's voice called from inside. Mommy. Lisa gasped. Ollie? I stopped her. Oliver was asleep in his bed. The voice came again. Daddy, let me out. I grabbed Lisa and ran. The next morning, we packed our things. As we left, I heard one last whisper from behind the closet door. You can't leave. This is your home now. We never looked back. My name is Jacob. A month ago, my wife, Megan, and I moved into what we thought was our dream home. It was a beautiful 2-story house with a finished basement, perfect for storage or even a game room. But from the first night, something felt off. It started with noises. A soft shuffling beneath the floorboards, like someone walking in the basement. At first, I thought it was the house settling, until one night, I heard footsteps, slow, deliberate. At 2:14 a.m., our basement door creaked. Opened. Megan sat up beside me. Did you hear that? I grabbed the baseball bat from under the bed and crept downstairs. The basement light flickered as I descended. The air smelled stale, damp. Nothing, but just as I turned to go back up, I noticed something. The small window, near the ceiling, the one too narrow for anyone to fit through, was unlocked. I locked it, brushed it off, and went back to bed. The next morning, Megan frowned at me over breakfast. Jacob, did you leave the basement door open? No, I said. We exchanged a look. That night, I placed a chair in front of the basement door, just in case. At 2:14 a.m., I woke to the sound of wood scraping against the floor. The chair had moved. The door was wide open. I grabbed my phone, heart pounding, and tiptoed downstairs. The basement light flickered violently. Shadows stretched unnaturally against the walls. Then I saw him, a man, gaunt, hollow-eyed, standing in the corner. His face was wrung too long, too pale. His lips curled into a smile. "You shouldn't have locked me out," he whispered. The light flickered once more, and he was gone. We moved out the next day, but sometimes, in the dead of night, I wake up, and I swear I hear footsteps beneath the floor. My name is Ethan. 3 months ago, my wife, Laura, and I moved into a charming old house on Hollow Street with our 6-year-old daughter, Emily. The house had history Laura loved, but something about it unsettled me from the start. The first night, as we unpacked, Emily ran into the kitchen with a wide-eyed expression. "Daddy, there's a boy in my room." Laura and I exchanged a look. "Sweetheart, we just moved in. There's no one here," she pouted. He was standing by my window. He had no eyes. A chill ran down my spine, but Laura brushed it off. "It's just her imagination," she whispered. That night I woke to a soft creaking. The hallway floorboards groaned, as if someone was walking outside our room. I held my breath, listening. Then, Emily screamed. I bolted into her room, finding her curled up under her blanket. Her small body trembled. "The boy was here," she sobbed. "He whispered my name." I searched the room, checking the closet and under the bed. Nothing. Just shadows stretching unnaturally in the moonlight. The following days, strange things happened. Doors creaked open on their own. Laura's jewelry box played its eerie tune at random times. And Emily, she grew quieter. Dark circles formed under her eyes. Then, one night, I found her whispering in the corner of her room. "Who are you talking to?" I asked. She turned, her expression blank. "The boy says you should leave." A frigid wave of fear crashed over me. "Why?" She blinked. "Because you're in his house." That night, I stayed awake, determined to catch whatever was tormenting my daughter. Around 3 a.m., the air turned heavy, suffocating. A sound like nails scraping wood echoed from the walls. Then, Emily's door creaked open. I grabbed the flashlight and stepped inside. The room felt colder than the rest of the house. My breath fogged the air. And then, I saw it. A figure small, thin stood in the corner, barely visible in the dim light. His face was hollow, empty sockets where eyes should be. I wanted to run, to grab Emily and leave, but I couldn't move. The boy raised a hand and pointed. His lips parted. A whisper filled the air. "Get out." The lights flickered, and an overwhelming force shoved me backward. I hit the hallway floor as Emily's room slammed shut. Laura woke to my shouts. We packed within the hour. The next morning, I called the realtor. I demanded to know the house's history. She hesitated before answering. "The Hollow Street house." Her voice lowered. "A little boy went missing there decades ago. His body was never found. We never returned. But sometimes, in the dead of night, I wake up to the memory of that whisper, and I wondered if we hadn't left, would we have disappeared too?" My name is Daniel. My wife Claire, and I moved into our new home 2 weeks ago, hoping for a fresh start. The house was spacious, affordable, and came with a locked room the realtor never mentioned. At first we didn't think much of it. The door was old, its keyhole rusted shut. Maybe it was just storage. But then, strange things started happening. Every night, between 2 and 3 a.m., we'd hear a faint knocking always from inside the locked room. "Probably the pipes," Claire said, but she wasn't convinced. Neither was I one night. I pressed my ear to the door. A whisper slithered through the keyhole. "Let me out." I stumbled back, my skin crawling. Claire found me standing there, frozen. "What's wrong?" she asked. I shook my head. I think someone's in there." We called a locksmith the next day. He arrived, examined the door, then frowned. "This isn't a normal lock," he muttered. "It's sealed from the inside." Claire and I exchanged uneasy glances. "Can you open it?" I asked. The locksmith hesitated. Then, with a loud snap, the lock broke. The door creaked open. A wave of stale air rolled out. Inside, the room was empty except for a single wooden chair facing the corner. Dust covered the floor, undisturbed. For years, no windows, no other doors, and yet, footprints. Small, bare footprints, leading to the chair. "Must have been squatters," the locksmith mumbled, leaving in a hurry. That night, we tried to ignore the unlocked room. But at exactly 2:33 a.m., our bedroom door creaked open. Claire clutched my arm. "Daniel," I sat up, heart hammering. A shadow stood in the doorways, small, thin. The air turned ice cold. Then, a whisper, "You shouldn't have opened it." The shadow rushed toward us. The lights went out, and we screamed.